Cliff, and you park behind Kelly Jeep on Route 1 North. And I'm going to lead it myself, and we've got a lot of history from the files in there. So we will be stopping and looking over Boston and talking about the Lynnwoods and the spiritualist who came to Lynnwoods, and the crazy, well, maybe I shouldn't say crazy, Mr. Marble and his son, who spent a whole lifetime digging a cave trying to find a pirate's buried treasure. This pirate who supposedly was buried in an earthquake there with this treasure. And it just, anyway, Andy wrote a great story on that many years ago. So we'll talk about the seances and the things that the spiritualists did in the Lynnwoods there. And then we'll go over to it's Callenberg Quarry. So this was a quarry from like 1900, late 1800s, 1900s. And in 2001, this graffiti artist, Ichabod, came and he painted skulls. And I'm not usually okay with graffiti, but this is really something to see. Unfortunately, it's very faded, and a lot of people are putting graffiti over it, which is ruining the thing. So it's kind of a shame. But anyway, we'll stop and talk about the Callenberg Quarry and Skull Cliff, how it became Skull Cliff. Okay, I also want to announce our plans for what we're calling Revolution 250. These are our plans for celebrating the nation's 250th birthday. So the Historical Society will be focusing on the 1775 events, which is the Battle of Lexington-Concord. And most people here know that we lost Daniel Townsend and a couple others, Hadley and Flint. So three of our guys got killed over there in Monotony, which is Arlington now, the Jason Russell House. So to celebrate that, we're gonna have a couple talks at the end of this series. The March and the April talks are going to be on how we came to revolution, what was going on here with the Stamp Act, and how did people's attitudes change to have a revolution. And then on April 18th, which is basically the night of Paul Revere's ride, we are going to have a solemn remembrance or grave decoration over at the cemetery in the center. And then we'll all walk back to the church here, and we have an expert, a local expert on April 19th, and he's going to tell the story of Daniel Townsend and the North Parish Militia. That was our militia that we had here. And Martin Herrick, who met Paul Revere and gave the alarm to Lynnfield, and then, marched off with those guys. Anyway, let's see where we're going. Okay, so that's our plans for 2024 celebration. And then in 2025, which will be the 250th anniversary of Lexington Concord, we will recreate Martin Herrick's ride. We have a horse rider coming in, and she is going to play Martin Herrick, and just come in, give the alarm, and then have, maybe it'll be us or something. I don't know that we'll be able to get a militia that day, but anyway, muster over at Gowing's Tavern and come over and get the ammunition and march off to Arlington, where unfortunately 3 of our guys got killed. Then that evening, we're planning on something. It's kind of like, if you know the play Our Town. We're planning on an original play called Our Town Lynnfield. And what we're going to do, we have Diane Folds writing these scripts. And we've got a lot of information in the files and in books of what these militiamen were doing. I think there was about 30 of them, 35 of them from Lynnfield, whatever. And a lot of them are buried over there at the center burial ground. Some are down in West and some are in Lynn, whatever. But we're going to have this thing, if you remember that play where they stand on their grave and they tell who they were and how they were feeling that night, what was going on in the town that night. So let's see where we are. Okay. And then, so that's our plan for that night of April 18th, 2025. Then following 2 weeks later, we're going to have something called If This House Could Talk. And what we want some help from residents. And we are going to have little signs that you can put on your front lawn, and we'll have you fill out the information. If you could just find just little interesting facts about your house. Doesn't have to do anything historical or anything great. Just interesting little facts. Maybe they found something in the walls or something like that. And we're going to ask people to, to do the story of their house, and we'll put it on their front lawn. And for a couple of weeks, people can, your neighbors and friends can come by and see the story of your house. So let's see. Okay, so make sure you get your name in for the free raffle tonight, and the winner will take home a copy of our author's book tonight. Please sign up for our email list, and if you haven't already, find us on Facebook, YouTube, the web, and Instagram. Okay, so let me introduce tonight's author. So first of all, could everybody turn off your cell phones? And, yeah.
Can you remind me what time that wet walk is on Saturday?
It's at noon. But look for the following Saturday. Okay. So anyway, hold your questions until the end so we don't interrupt the speaker and think that it's over or anything like that. So anyway, turn off your cell phones, hold your questions. Tonight's guest speaker is author Andy Rapoza. Andy is a native of Massachusetts, now living in the Houston area. Mr. Rapoza pursued his passion for collecting and researching health and medical history while living and raising his family in Lynn. After decades of study, he published the book, Promising Cures, The Pursuit of Health in 19th Century New England Community, Lynn, Massachusetts. He explains that to fight pain, sickness, and death, they turned to their own creativity, old family recipes, and never-ending stream of promising cures in emerging science-based medicines. He will also discuss the dark days of the 17th century when unexplained illnesses and misfortunes were often blamed on witchcraft. Mr. Rapoza has done extensive research in this matter in Lynnfield through his study of markings and artifacts suggesting belief in witchcraft associated with several historical homes still standing in town, and we have a couple of residents here who still live in those houses. So please welcome tonight's guest speaker, Andrew Rapoza.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you, everyone, for the honor of your attendance tonight. I hope you will find it to be time well spent. I realize I have instructed to have the lights turned off. Hopefully there's enough here for you if you need to leave, go to the bathroom, whatever, you can find your way. If you're concerned about it seriously as a safety precaution, just speak up and we'll turn the lights on because we don't want anybody to hurt themselves.
Your voice is really not projecting through the microphone, sir.
Okay, can you hear me any better?
A little bit.
Just lean into it.
Yeah.
Try that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. No, I'm just doing it so I can turn the page without knocking over the microphone. I realize you may not be able to see what I'm doing here, but has everybody received one of these cards by a show of hand? If there is anyone that has not? Looks like everyone's... Oh, okay, one on the end. My wife is going around. Honey? Where? The box is behind the book, sweetheart. Come over towards me. Towards me. Keep going. Keep going. Right there in the corner. Okay. Oh, good. Ron can escort you to the people that still need it. Hold up your hands again, and I'll keep talking while she's doing that. Each card shows a cover. Okay. Bob, I'm going to be saying that name throughout the night instead of the word next, because next appears in a few places, and that would throw Bob off. Okay. One more, Bob. Excellent. Okay. Each card shows a cover of one of the 4 volumes of my book, Promising Cures. If you didn't get a chance to browse them yet, please enjoy looking through them after the presentation. They're up at the table over there. They're available in hardcover and softcover. The card you have, or will have shortly, has on the back the website address for Amazon, which is where they're available, and also a site called FamilySearch.org, a local history and family history website, one of the largest in the world, along with Ancestry.com. I'm going to just take a moment here to tell you a little bit about this because it's really important to me you understand. If you decided to go to Amazon.com to buy my book, you're buying it paying whatever Amazon is requesting, which based on the volume, it's in the high 20s, low 30s per volume. They asked me, as they do with all authors, what would you like to have for a royalty to add on to that cost? They recommended 35%. I put 0. This book has been a labor of love. It has taken me 35 years of my time to research and write. It was never about money. As Ken Torino can attest, anybody writing a local history does not do it for fame or money. It's love. And that's what I did. So any money you're paying, it's to them, not to me. More importantly to me, that FamilySearch.org website, my whole book, all 4 volumes, is available free online. Every page, completely searchable. If you have an ancestor or the homeowner of your home, if it's an old home, and you want to see, did I mention them in the book? You can just do a search. You'll find if that person, that address, that event, whatever it is mentioned. Volume 1 covers the colonial years. Volume 2, including the Revolutionary War, and Volume 2 covers through the Civil War and actually to about 1869. From the Volume 3, the green title, most prominently, I'm sure most of you have heard of Lydia Pinkham, Mary Baker Eddy, and really the golden age of patent medicines, all in Volume 3. Volume 4 covers Lynn in 1890 through 1929, covering such stories as General Electric's rise and slight fall, the Great Fire in Lynn in 1889. A lot of interesting information, but again, everything is based on the theme going through the whole book is what did people do when they got sick or had an accident? And as you go generation to generation, century to century, it was very, very different, as you might expect. So tonight, we're going to be talking about information that's in Volume 1. And Volume 1, like I said, covers the colonial years. And in this presentation, I will be introducing you to early colonial use of magic for health and protection from evil. Then I will show you examples I have found in 17th and 18th century homes in Massachusetts, and in particular in Lynnfield and Saugus, as well as explain possible meanings behind the marks and objects found, all within 45 minutes. There's so little time to go over so much. Just remember that many more details can be found in Volume 1 of Promising Cures on this topic. Please hold your questions till the end. You've already been told that, sorry. This presentation is designed to educate, but not to amuse. You'll notice I am not dressed up for Halloween. And I didn't bring any funny pictures of witches or blow-up lawn inflatables. Innocent people by the hundreds in this country and by the tens of thousands in Europe were wrongly accused, and many of those were tortured and executed for the crime of witchcraft. Similarly, many in the Massachusetts Bay Colony genuinely feared witches. With respect to all of them, I present their beliefs and mistakes seriously. I urge you to try to see all of this that I will present to you tonight through their eyes. Okay, let's begin. Bob? Okay, this is my mistake. I'm going to have to sync with Bob. That's very nice, Bob. Thank you. Next, Bob. Okay, put yourself here. The year is 1643. You left your home in a bustling town in England and now find yourself living in a small house, not much more than a cabin, in the woods of Lynn, Essex County, Massachusetts, next to Salem. All you can see beyond the land you've cleared is woods on all sides. Your nearest European neighbor is a quarter mile away, but you and your family catch glimpses of the people you call Indians in the shadows of the trees, or even brazenly coming out in the open, walking up to one of your farm animals, or looking in a window, or even an open door. You sometimes refer to them as savages because their clothes, language, homes, and lifestyles are so different from yours. Your minister has preached that they are servants of the devil. There's much more to fear in the wilds of original Lynn, like bears, cougars, bobcats, moose, rattlesnakes, and wolves. And day can become a nightmare. Any day can become a nightmare. But nighttime makes it still worse. Bob? Your house provides some safety from the wild animals and Indians at night, but evil can still find its way inside. In spirit form, witches and their familiars, animals like cats, rats, squirrels, and mice, can get into the house through the smallest openings, again, in spirit form. Under the door, a hole in the wall, or even the keyhole, and most easily down the chimney. Then nothing can stop them from cursing your child or spouse with sickness, pain, and even death. Bob? Puritans, so called by us today, had no doubt that witches and the devil were real because the Bible told them so. Bob? Exodus 22:18 reads, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." It was a clear statement that witches existed. And the Bible also stated many times that the devil was very clear, very real, and dangerous. Bob? Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walketh about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. From 1 Peter 5:8. Bob? Here are just a few court testimonies of Massachusetts Bay colonists who feared that among others among them were actually witches. Bob? From Marblehead in 1646, the transcript reads, "He heard that goodwife Jane James was a witch, and he saw her in a boat at sea in the likeness of a cat. Also his garden fruits did not prosper so long as he lived near that woman." Bob? Andover in 1658, diverse people have for some times suffered losses in their estates and some affliction on their bodies, also which they suppose doth not arise from any natural cause or any neglect in themselves, but rather from some ill-disposed person. Bob? Again, from Marblehead in 1666, Jane James is now a widow and still being accused of witchcraft 20 years later. She came in at a hole in the window in the house, took him by the throat, and almost choked him as he lay in his bed, and called her old hag. Bob? One more time. One more time. Excellent. A Dutch visitor to Boston wrote in 1680, "I must here mention another word about Boston. I have never seen in a place where more was said about witchcraft and witches." Never been in a place. Okay. Bob? When things went wrong, it was a sign of God's anger. God turned his back to sinful people, they believed, and allowed the devil and his witches to do evil things to them. For example, your buttery golden bread pudding, Bob, comes out of the oven a red-hot mess. Bob? Your critically essential livestock suddenly die. Bob? A family member is attacked and perhaps even dies from the bite of a wild animal. Bob? A family member becomes sick from some unknown illness. Bob? What was the source of a witch's power to cause so much pain, suffering, and destruction? The source of all evil. Bob? Not Bob, but you know what I mean. Satan. This drawing from a 1580 grimoire, which is a book of magic spells and cures, shows him in beastly shape, with a man's face and a demon's horns, a lion's mane and front paws, a rooster's feet, and a monkey's tail. Interestingly, during the 1692 witch trials, John Louder accused Bridget Bishop of sending a demon into his bedroom that he described as a, quote, species of man-monkey, Bob, black, with a rooster's feet and claws, who frightened him terribly. Bob. Okay, this is from a book by Joseph Glanville in 1681. Bob. This version of Satan, part goat, bat, dragon, and pig, hovers over a house beating his drum, surrounded by an army of his devoted demon familiars. Beating the drum was Glanville's representation of the devil causing, Bob, A thunderstorm. Bob? This image portrays not a floating person, but a witch in spirit form, about to attack a home. Like the spirit of Jane James in 1666, whom we just read, had come into the house at a hole in the window. Bob? When a sickness seemed unusual or didn't yield to available medicines, it was called, quote, unnatural, end quote, and suspected to have been caused by a witch's curse. The doctor who authored this book had no doubt about the source of several unusual and uncommon sicknesses and diseases. They couldn't be explained or cured, and thus, he stated without any doubt, they were the work of witchcraft. Bob? The fear of witchcraft was not simply a phenomenon of 1692. It was widespread throughout New England, and the limited existing records document over 200 cases starting as early as 1647. Also note, there are 33 known executions, of which Salem accounts for only 19. The records for the fate of 69 others have not yet been found. So those put to death could be a higher number. 59 confessed to being witches, largely the result of fear, interrogation techniques, and the miseries of incarceration. Bob? Their ministers preached that faith, obedience, and prayer were the proper defense against witchcraft. But terrible, unexplainable things were still happening to the faithful, and some felt the need to do more than just pray. You might pray that a fox wouldn't attack your chickens, but you were still going to get your gun and shoot if it tried. Bob? So how could they better defend their loved ones, Bob? And how could they protect their families at bedtime, Bob, when the candles were all blown out? Bob? One option was turn to the Bible for God's clues for protection. The Bible was considered to be full of symbolic messages like the power of certain cures, Bob. For example, 3 for the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. 5 for the wounds of Christ. 12 for the apostles, and more. Bob? Bushes of mountain ash were often planted around the outside of the house because the 5-pointed pentagram pattern on each berry was believed to be a sign that God would protect the house against evil. I realize this may be hard to see, but at the end of each berry there's a 5-pointed pentagram. Bob? A braid of 12 garlic bulbs hung behind an outside door was hoped to ward off witches and thieves. Bob? Colonists also turned to the secret practices of family and friends. Some used methods of ritualized protection to keep their family and farm animals safe. When they had lived in Great Britain, they and their relatives and friends had folklore traditions for generations of, Bob? Carving or drawing special, Bob, protection symbols and hiding ritual objects in their homes and barns, all to keep their families and animals safe from witches. The protective marks and objects were designed to either trap or repel evil spirits. But ministers like Increase and Cotton Mather, Bob, called it counter magic and white magic. They warned that using, Bob, white magic to fight a witch's black magic was playing into the devil's hands because, Bob, all magic was of, Bob, the devil. But one more time, Bob. But the fearful were desperate. Bob, here are 3 types of protection marks found in and near original Lynn. By the way, I should have mentioned, every time I say original Lynn, I'm talking about Lynn back in the 17th century. So that incorporates, as most of you know, Lynnfield, Lynn, Saugus, Swampscott, Nahant, and part of North Reading. Don't think I left anybody out. Okay. The hexafoil, also called a daisy wheel. This solar symbol traces back to Roman antiquity, the petals representing the sun's rays. Hexafoil stems from the German word hexen, which means witches. Bob. Saltire cross. An X, literally like the letter X, was a warning sign to approaching evil, symbolic of, Bob, 2 castle guards crossing halberds or swords to stop entry into the house or barn, protecting the treasures inside. It also invoked the protection of, Bob, St. Andrew, an apostle who was crucified on a cross in this position. Bob, the cross of St. Andrew became the flag of Scotland. Bob, another mark was, Bob.
It's not going.
All right, do you have the...
There we go.
There we go. Okay. And you did it so well, do it again.
I didn't do it that way.
There we go. The Virgin of Virgin marks. The mark resembling a W or a pair of overlapping V's was the abbreviation for Virgin of Virgins, symbolizing protection from the Virgin Mary. Protective marks were placed near doors, windows, and around fireplaces, the openings where evil could easily enter the home. Very important to remember that. Protective objects were hidden behind walls and under floors, the fireplace hearth, or the door threshold. Ultimately, all to protect from evil spirit in spirit form entering the house through any opening that existed. Bob. Excellent. Bob, this is the big one with a lot of Bobs, okay? Protecting, Bob, one's home or barn from witches required no expense or special skills. The marks were easily made with the sharp point of a knife, scissors, compass, or nail. And ritual objects were items around the house and barn that were being repurposed instead of discarded. It was believed that these simple marks and ordinary objects magically transformed in the spirit world into weapons and traps to catch, repel, and even kill witches. Again, very important to follow this. The early colonists believed broken items in this world were, Bob. Okay, down at the bottom there, where it says, where broken is whole, weak is strong, darkness is light, and dead is alive. The early colonists believed broken items in this world were whole in the spirit world. Weak things became strong. What was dark here was light there. Dead or non-functioning here became alive in the world of spirits. Just like the crucified Jesus Christ was resurrected from death and became alive again in the spirit world. The following are the results of a survey that I did back in 2020 and 2021 of the ritual protection findings in the 6 oldest houses in original Lynn, Massachusetts. 5 of those homes are in Lynnfield and Saugus. The other one is in Swampscott. I will not be talking about the Swampscott home tonight. That one is a pretty, just blows your mind kind of story. And that's a separate presentation I'm doing day after tomorrow at the Swampscott Historical Society, to which you're all invited. But wear your gang colors from Lynnfield. Storm Swampscott. They're at the Swampscott Library at 6:30. Okay, Bob. Protective marks included, Bob, the hexafoil, which we've already discussed. Bob, the circle. Like the hexafoil, it was a solar symbol, the unending line, and when drawn as a series of concentric circles, a design of cosmological importance, symbolic of God's protection, and more about that later. Bob, mesh marks, also known as demon traps. They look something like a portion of a net or a cobweb and were sometimes encased in a geometric shape. And next, Bob, Virgin of Virgin marks, we've already discussed. Bob, Saltire cross, we've already discussed. Bob, parallel lines, a series of parallel lines symbolic of iron jail bars or nails. Bob, candle burn marks were created on purpose. The remaining sooty imprint or indentation looked like a non-existent flame, but in the spirit world, it was a bright flame in the darkness. and evil spirits wanted to stay in darkness and were afraid of the light. Bob, protective objects. Horseshoe. I'm sorry, Bob. Good job, Bob. You've all heard of these being put on or over a door. It's made of iron, which was the witch's kryptonite. Bob, concealed cat, semi-nocturnal creature, believed to have a sixth sense. We have a cat in our house named Booger, and Booger will suddenly turn his head, and we do that too, and we have no idea what he's looking at. That made them believe that he had a sixth sense, not just Booger, but all cats, able to see spirits. Next, Bob, horse skull. It was believed that witches rode horses at night, so a horse was a tempting distraction for a witch attacking a house. Bob, shoe. Shoes retain the shape and somewhat the odor of the wearer, making them a good decoy. Bob, poppet doll. Pins in the doll cause pain to the person intended, like a witch. Or iron wrapped around the doll served the same purpose, choking the witch. Bob, witch bottle, also a decoy and a trap. Much more on that later. In fact, I think it's the last slide. Bob, coin. Coins were put in the walls of houses as a foundation sacrifice to appease the spirits instead of human sacrifice. Back in the days of the Greeks, they actually would kill somebody who had been building the house or some other sacrifice and entomb that person somewhere in the house, the floor, the cellar, whatever, as a foundation sacrifice to discourage the spirits from needing to burn down the house or cause any other damage. That changed over time to coins, which have the image of a person's face or a body, and became a more acceptable foundation sacrifice. But the purpose was the same, to appease the spirits. Bob. I'm now putting Bob is putting red stars. Bob is going quickly with red stars. That's okay. The red stars represent what we found in the original six homes, the six homes of original Lynn. So keep going, Bob. All of the protective marks that I've talked about, and there are more protective marks, but these are the main ones. We found them in the six original homes in Lynn, and then we found horseshoes, shoes, dolls, and a coin. Okay, Bob, next. Dr. John Henry Birchstead gravestone, 1721, in the old burying ground in Lynn. Today it's called the Old Western Burying Ground. It's a beautiful, beautiful stone, and like so many of these stones, a tragedy that is today completely covered in lichen. And back in 1985, when I pretended to not know any better, I did a rubbing of the stone that you'll see in a minute. The protective marks on this stone are rarely dated, on stones like this, are rarely dated, but the protective objects can be. Oh, you know what? Forgive me. Yeah, I missed a paragraph before this, so just dwell on this for a minute. The protective marks are rarely dated, but the protective objects often can be. Some of the marks may have been made in these 6 Lynn homes during the first 100 years of colonization, but objects were found in them dating as late as the 1890s. Other New England homes built after the 1720s have also been found to have ritual protection marks and objects. After 1692, the church and the law backed away from accusing and convicting suspected witches. Without the church and the courts protecting them, some people continued to protect themselves from evil and, quote, bad luck throughout the 1700s and 1800s and even into the early 20th century. And in fact, we even do it today, don't we? I mean, if any of you have seen 80 for Brady and the ladies at the beginning of the movie all wearing their Tom Brady jersey and sitting or standing in a particular position, also that the Patriots could win a game. First of all, they need to be called again. We do things like that. Wear our favorite jersey, do something silly, avoid walking under ladders. All of this are things that are carried into today. Okay, now Dr. John Henry Burchett Stone. Starting in the late 1600s, gravestones in the Massachusetts Bay Colony often had several symbolic elements of ritual protection. We see on this stone, Bob, acanthus leaves. They symbolize immortality. That's these round or circular patterns of leaves all over the stone. And again, acanthus leaves were an architectural element going back to the days of the Greeks and the Romans, used for much the same reason as far as symbolism. The dogwood flower, that's represented here, a 4-petaled pointed flower, honoring the crucifixion of Christ. Concentric circles at the top of the stone here, series of concentric circles, invoking the protection of God who rules the universe, and we'll see that in just a bit. The vinca flower, which is 5-petal flower right here, serenity in death, in other words, no fear of evil. And of course, the winged cherub, representing the flight of the soul to heaven. All very symbolic elements on this stone, designed to protect the spirit of the deceased in its voyage up to heaven, so that no evil could attack it and pull it away from its ultimate destination. This rubbing was done, I'm sorry, Bob. This rubbing that I did in 1985 also shows a mesh mark down here, which is now below the grass line, within the circle at the bottom of the stone. It is, in its entirety, the hopeful symbols about the afterlife help to soften the hard reality of death. Note the last 2 lines of the epitaph, which I will read for you. Reader, physicians die, and this was a doctor. Reader, physicians die as others do. Prepare, for thou to this art hastening to. With an understanding of the symbolism on the gravestone, it becomes clear that since there was no way to stop the death of the body, the spirit's safe arrival in heaven was eternally critical. The stone was consequently covered in protective symbolism designed to protect the spirit in its journey to heaven. Apparently, some colonists felt that even the, today we call them Puritans, Puritan predestination might benefit from a little counter magic to help the spirit get where God intended it to be. Bob. So now I present to you the 5 homes in Lynnfield and Saugus, and yes, you can count 6. I want to make a point with the first one, but first things first. As of 2023, 9 buildings constructed during the first 100 years of European colonization still stand within the bounds of original Lynn, Massachusetts, the town I focused on in my book research. 3 of those buildings have been modernized to the point that if marks or objects existed, they can no longer be seen. Of the 6 remaining buildings, all 6 were found to contain ritual protection marks, and in some cases, protective objects as well. Now, as I go through the buildings that you're so interested in this evening, really the meat of, I think, why most of you are here, I want to explain the sequence I've got. First, I'm going to tell you the witchcraft context of that home. Okay, I'm going to tell you something about the home's history that I've researched that helps us to understand potentially what the occupants were concerned about. Then I will show you the marks. So, the first one, Bob, the Henfield house. From 1710 to 1734, the home was lived in by James and John Pearson, the brother and sister of Sarah Pearson, who, as a young girl, had been brought in 1669 to the widow Anne Burt, the, quote, old witch, for cure. No protective marks or objects have been found in the Henfield house because it has been restored and modernized. They may exist on the original surfaces, but are covered over by layers of varnish, paint, and wallpaper. The Timothy Monroe house in Lynnfield, built in 1690, and the Second Parish Meeting House on your town green, built in Lynnfield in 1714, have also been highly modified and modernized. So those 2 homes, and those 2 buildings, and this home, we did not find any marks. We aren't aware of any objects, but there are so many reasons, like modernization, that we may not see them, but they may be there. These marks here that you can see, and there's some concentric circles off the edge, but this is why I've got the slide. You can see them, but they're covered over in a layer of green paint and another layer or two of paint in the future, and those will be gone. I am absolutely convinced, with such a strong witchcraft context that this house has in its history, that there would have been something in the home, perhaps quite a bit. To Linda and Bob's, don't click, Gillen's dismay, we weren't able to find any, but I'm convinced they're there. Okay, Bob. The Appleton House in Saugus, you know it is the base home of the Saugus Ironworks. Part of the timber framing of the Appleton House is all that survives at the Saugus Ironworks from the 1600s. John Gifford, a company agent, may have lived in it while the ironworks was in operation. His wife, Margaret Gifford, was accused of witchcraft in about 1680. Bob? This is some wood over the... Oops. Oh, no, back.
I'm sorry.
Back one. Okay. Excellent. The wood over the door it's barely visible, but there is a hexafoil symbol there, that daisy wheel pattern. So I circled it for you to see, or Bob did. Okay, Bob, next. The Boardman House in Saugus, built in 1692. A house for the Scottish prisoners of war who were bound to serve on the Hammersmith farm at the Saugus Ironworks. They were exposed to Ann Burt, a healer who was sometimes hired for medical services at the ironworks, and Margaret Gifford, wife of the ironworks agent. Both women were accused of being witches, Burt in 1669 and Gifford in about 1680. Now, on the left here, you can see the Roman numeral 3 here and the Roman numeral 3 here. The marks I'm talking about are not these. They're not carpenter's marks. Carpenters and joiners would use marks. They'd mark the wood so that when they cut and shaped and measured the wood off outside of the house. When they brought it in, they needed to marry together the right pieces of wood. So they put the same numbering next to where the joint's where it's supposed to go together. The marks we're seeing aren't Roman numerals. They are around fireplaces, doors, etc. This is in an attic. Okay. Bob. You can go to the next one. Oh, that's right. I highlighted in red there so you can see it better. Okay, Bob.
Here we go.
Okay. Thank you. We have here in the Boardman house, over their fireplace, 2 circles. There are 2 circles, 2 sets of mesh marks, 2 Marian marks, 5 saltire crosses, 2 butterfly marks, or saltire crosses, and at least 14 vertical slash marks. All marks are incised on the fireplace lintel of the Great Hall. Now I'm going to highlight in red so you can see it better. Here are 2 saltire marks. I traced it here, and they sometimes call it a butterfly mark because of the sides being drawn as well. And again, think of that yellow picture of the 2 men crossing their weapons, preventing you from getting in. Okay, next one, Bob, a larger one. Okay, saltire cross or butterfly mark. And last, there's a circle, which is a solar symbol, the sun. And inside the circle is a Marian mark, which is like the Virgin of Virgins upside down. It still represents the Virgin Mary, the M for Mary. Okay? Bob. Also within the Boardman house in the Great Hall, if you look at the ironwork here on the hinge, you can see bull's horns here, which also was an apotropaic or protection symbol. I think I've got a circle for that, Bob. Go ahead. Okay. And then over here, this was actually post 1880. This was added. This is half of an ox shoe. Ox shoes and horseshoes, etc., were put on doors, as we mentioned earlier, because they were made of iron, and iron repelled witches. And so that's why they put on the door. Literally, there are accounts in the New England records of a person trying to go into the house, but they couldn't, and they couldn't be encouraged to come in by the homeowner who suspected them of being a witch. They kept coming up with excuses. One lady just sat down outside the door, saying she was too tired to go in, and the homeowner took it to be because they had the horseshoe on the door. Okay. Bob, go ahead. Okay, I'm sure you know this house in Lynnfield, the Hart House, 1672. The witchcraft context. Isaac and Elizabeth Hart were the builders and original occupants of this house. In 1655, Elizabeth was brought before the church for varied sinfulness in not harboring travelers that were in danger of their lives and for offensive words spoken to them. At 70 years old, Elizabeth Hart was arrested in, I'm sorry, Bob. Thank you. At 70 years old, Elizabeth Hart was arrested in May 1692 for sundry acts of witchcraft committed upon the bodies of Ann Putnam, Mercy Lewis, and others in Salem Village. She was sentenced to prison in October and not released until December. Bob. Ann Putnam testified and saith that I have often seen the apparition of Goody Hart, that's her, among the witches. She has hurt me most grievously several times and urgeth me grievously to writ in her book. Oftentimes in the trials transcripts, people talked about how when they were confronting witches, they were told, they were coerced, urged, seduced, etc., to write in the book. The book is referring to the devil's book, and if you put your name in there, that you're a goner for eternity, that you know where you're going. Okay. Bob. In the Hart House, there was one circle. Bob. It's down there that you could just see a little bit of it here. And, you know, you can see that it's definitely a circle there. You can't see the top part, and you may wonder, why didn't they make a whole circle? We're looking at something that's, you know, upwards of 250 to 300 years old. All kinds of renovations, modernization, who knows what this has been through. Or maybe the homeowner was just in a rush. But bottom line is, that was a circle, a sower symbol. Bob, there were two sets of mesh marks. Bob, 2 saltire crosses, and Bob, 1 virgin's mark. Not pictured here, there were 2 sets of slash marks as well. All of these marks are incised on the door leading to the cellar. Note well that cellars, wells, and caves were considered entrances to hell. So I can't resist pointing out, here we all are, meeting in an entrance to hell. And it's in the basement of a church, no less. It sounds like a plot for the next Stephen King book. Bob? An iron shed door handle has 5 saltire crosses engraved on it. But while it is a first period of European colonization handle, it was added by a restoration builder, Mark Ingrassiola told me. Bob, the late Victorian objects in ritual placement in the ceiling over the exterior door of the Hart House included a girl's shoe, which has been dated by a master calciologist who was the head of what's it called? Historic Williamsburg, Virginia. He kindly dated it for me at about 1890. And there was a bisque doll painted black, also dated 1890. Bob, the tissue paper was possibly to make it seem like a foot was inside it, and therefore more like an occupied shoe. The doll, which is human form, was possibly also a lure or decoy alongside the shoe. The wire could be significant due to its metal content, iron, being harmful to evil. The location and nature of the objects strongly suggest protective magic. And this was in correspondence with Brian Hoggart, who's Great Britain's leading expert on ritual protection marks and symbols at this time. Bob. The Townsend House in Lynnfield, built about 1720. Bill Thompson, I believe, is the owner there. Erroneously identified as the Captain Flint House, ownership of this property by Daniel Townsend Sr. has been substantiated through real estate record research by the current owner, William Thompson, Esquire, and confirmed by my research. Bob. Bethia Carter, aged 23. One more, Bob. There you go. Oh, that's okay. Just let it be there. Bethia Carter, age 23, deposed that when her sister, Sarah Townsend, was still a maid before 27 November 1668, when Sarah Pearson married John Townsend, she had been, quote, sorely afflicted with sad fits, and that on an occasion when the two sisters were both ill, their father had carried Bethia to Boston for treatment, but only took Sarah, I love this, quote, to Lynn, to an old witch, the widow Ann Burt. Bethia also claimed her sister Sarah saw the widow Burt appear at the foot of her bed frequently. And they don't mean visiting, literally going from invisible to there, from spirit form to corporeal form, both day and night. And also that Burt had said if she would believe in her God, insinuating that Burt meant the devil, she would be able to cure her body and soul. Madeline Pearson, Sarah and Bethia's mother, deposed that she had heard Sarah explain how, after Widow Burt had gotten her to bed, she had urged her to smoke her pipe, and giving her the pipe, she smoked it, and Sarah fell into the fits again, and said, Goodwife Burt brought the devil to her to torment her. Dr. Philip Reed testified he was sent for 3 times to examine the ill sisters, and found that Sarah was in a more sadder condition, but did plainly perceive there was no natural cause for such unnatural fits. Finding Sarah rational on his 4th visit, Reed asked her the cause of her fits, and she told me Burt, the widow Burt, had afflicted her. Bob.
Oops.
No protective marks have been found in this house because it has been highly restored and modernized. So interestingly, there were no ritual protection marks, but there were those objects that were found. Okay. Go ahead, Bob. What objects? Here's one of the objects. Fabulous. Behind the fireplace wall, a young boy's shoe, dated by that calceologist, from 1740 to 1760. His mother and older brother had died in weeks previous to his death. Was a desperate father trying to distract the vicious attacking witch by placing his sick young son's shoe as a decoy behind the fireplace wall? Also found in the house was a 1723 Hibernian penny behind a beam, on a beam behind a wall. After 3 house fires since its original construction in 1654, the third occurring in 1708, reconstruction believed to be completed about 1720, the coin may have been placed during the 4th home reconstruction as a foundation sacrifice to protect the home from further harm. There was also, in the ceiling, he opened up a ceiling, Bill Thompson did, and shredded Bible pages started coming down like confetti. Pages of a Bible were a ritual protective placement, purposely destroyed so that the Bible would be full of holy power in the spirit realm. Or, perhaps, they were shredded by rats doing the bidding of the witch they served. You'll be the judge.
When were these things found?
When?
Yeah.
I don't know how long Bill was doing renovations to his house. So, okay, but he still has it. Bob. Oh, yeah, there's a crutch that was also found, a child's crutch. You can see it next to me. The child would obviously be a lot shorter than I was. And that was found in a wall. Perhaps so the child would be whole in the spirit world, the crutch was put into the wall. Okay, next, or Bob, sorry. This is the Tapley House in Lynnfield. dated about 1700 according to the sign. I think it might have been a little bit later, closer to 1719. Nathaniel and Elizabeth Corning Hayward built the Tapley House. They had raised their family in Salem Village during the era of its witch trials, but their own childhoods had been experienced in neighboring Beverly. Elizabeth was the daughter of Ensign Samuel Corning, who was a Beverly selectman in the 1670s. Bob. In 1846, and I love this research, the result of this research that I did, the Salem Register described supernatural events occurring in the 1600s very near the Corning family's home in Beverly. Bob. One story was of a large number of black cats that tormented a man with their caterwauling for some deed of darkness he had done. He was only able to pacify them by psalm singing. When the man died, these supposed agents of the other world completely covered his coffin, and upon being disturbed, all made their exit up the chimney, bearing, as was supposed, the spirit of their victim with them. Bob. Another eccentric individual on the same street was also described. He practiced, quote, witchcraft and superstition. Among other things, he kept by him the hand taken from the corpse of a firstborn male child, in which he contended he could place a light of the most brilliant character and carry it anywhere unperceived by anyone except himself. Again, the concept that I hear in this story is he's able to hold a bright light that you and I can't see, just like the candle marks on a wall or over the fireplace that look to us today like just black patches of carbon where a candle went against, but in the spirit world, they were bright aflame. Okay, Bob. Continuing on witchcraft context. Along with these two stories of the supernatural, the article included a description of the Corning family home, the first period garrison-style house with its upper story jutting out over the lower part, like the one we saw in Saugus, the Boardman house. It was remembered for some curious relics of rude painting and carving of the olden time within the house. And that was mentioned in the context of the same article with those supernatural things that happened on that street. The Cornings had painted and carved protective marks in their house in the late 1600s, apparently of sufficient number and prominence to be recalled a century and a half later. Married and with a family of their own, Nathaniel and Elizabeth Corning Hayward purchased the property in Lynnfield, and at some point in the early 1700s, they and their children built the Tapley House and carved curious rude marks in that house as well. The Salem witch trials had passed, but fear of supernatural evil had not. Bob. I have a selection here of the marks found in their house. First, I'm going to point out to you down here, this yellow graph paper. When I was in their house and they took me over to the fireplace, above the fireplace were all these marks, 2 rows of them, in rows because of the molding, the old moldings that they were on. Above it, there was a date written that looks like April 1719, and then there are some marks here as well. I'm only going to take time to describe a few of them. First, look at this part here, Bob. 5 parallel lines. What could the parallel lines represent, Bob? Possibly to symbolize jail bars, trapping the spirit from going any further. There were 6 saltire crosses. Bob, here, I've shown you one of the saltire crosses that's in a circle. Over here, Bob, there is a Virgin of Virgins mark in a circle. Next, over here, there are 13 circles that I've highlighted overlapping each other, and may, where am I? 13 circles may represent a lunar eclipse or just multiple solar symbols. And then up here, don't do anything, Bob. Up here, I've got two images of the same thing. I polarized this photograph so that you can see just a little better. There's some white lines in there. This is what it looks like today. How is that a burn mark? The burn mark was put in. It probably extended, and this board has been put in later. It probably went to a point up here. And they kept scraping out the carbon, and they would do it over and over again. And I'm going to take just a moment. I didn't tell Ron I was going to do this because I didn't want him to say you can't do it. Okay. And I don't smoke, so this is the most fun part of it. Ah, here we go. Oh. Hang on. Okay, here's the candle. How do candle marks get made? On purpose. Candles set like this. If this candle was in a candle stand, it wouldn't be right next to the wood. The stand would prevent that. And you could only have a candle stand if the mantle was wide enough. What's there today shows no sign of a mantle. It could have been put in a little iron hoop called a cricket, but there is no hole under the burn mark indicating there was a cricket that it was resting in. So what a person who's purposely making a ritual protection mark using a candle to make a burn, they have to hold it like this. And they hold it up against the wood for at least 5 minutes. It's been tested many times. You have to do this at least for 5 minutes, holding it in place to make a carbon residue there. And then you scratch it out, and if you want it deeper, you do it again. Scratch it out, do it deeper if you wish, again. Okay. That's the only use of flames, Ron, wherever you are. Okay. Next, Bob. Okay, and it's interesting to me. They not only wanted to make the burn mark it's right here on the chart. Looks like a coat of arms there, but it's this mark. Not only did they make the burn mark so that there'd be a glowing light in the darkness, but they put the Virgin of Virgins mark inside as well for additional protection. Okay, Bob. Here's concentric circles that's also in their house, not part of the fireplace, but in another room on the way out to their porch. I just froze when I saw this. I just thought this was so awesome. Now, Bob, this is from that grimoire from 1580. Hopefully you can see it's a series of concentric circles. And what's really neat about this is, to me, back then they believed that the earth was the center of the universe. This is the earth. Okay? Then it says moon, Mercury, Venus, sun. They have the sun where we actually are. But most important is when you get beyond the starry firmament, okay, they have in the outer ring the first mover. The first mover was God. So concentric circles is to remind of the universe and that they are protected because they put this on here, showing their faith, letting Satan know we believe that God is protecting us. And we've put this here, and he will protect us because we have put this here. Okay? Okay, Bob. Finally, back to the fireplace. These well-incised marks, very clear. And I'll remind you from earlier, I said that they believed that certain numbers were especially important. And if they could work that into these symbols, so much the better. So here you have a mesh mark, looks like a net type of thing, but it's also in a triangular form. Father, Son, Holy Ghost. They're doing everything they can to invoke the power and protection of heaven from evil, from witches, from the devil that they believed in so strongly because the Bible told them they were real. Okay, Bob?
Excuse me. Before you leave Tapley, is there anything there about Tapley's tomb?
No, I don't have anything on Tapley's tomb. Sorry.
You never heard of it being there?
I know of it, and I know it's down the road a little bit, but I haven't done anything with it.
I just thought I'd ask.
No, sorry. Okay, next. Elsewhere in Massachusetts, just so I can round out the apotropaic objects, the ritual protection objects. In a thick wall near the chimney, I should speak into this, in a thick wall near the chimney, a horse skull had a piece of paper in the eye socket. Bob? Bob? Note in the eye socket. Bob?
You're off the arrow.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
There it is. Hey. Read it. The note read, Colonel David M. Bryant and family took possession of this farm on April 29, 1848. The note also listed the names of his wife and 6 children. The horse skull was expected to protect those named in the letter. That was in South Deerfield in 1848. Next, Bob. Concealed cat. In Shutesbury, Mass., also about 1848. One cat was found under the floorboards of the wood closet they put wood in, attached to one end of the summer kitchen behind the outside door for bringing in wood. It was deposited in a space impossible for it to have access. This placement was either a building sacrifice or a ritual protection to ward off evil. We know that cats are good mousers, for example. So if the witch had a familiar that was a mouse or a rat or a squirrel or whatever, coming to the house in spirit form, they were countering the magic, doing counter magic, and having a cat buried in the wall or cellar. And there was another cat found in the same type of placement under the floorboards in the same part of the house in the second home of the same period nearby in the same town. So these things happen. And I hope I'm not sowing the seeds of marital discord if one of you decides to start tearing down your walls and digging up your floorboards to find such things. Okay, Bob, we're almost done. Last slide. This is a Bartmann bottle, German for bearded man, made in the area of Cologne, Germany. The bottle is anthropomorphic, with its face on the, I'm sorry, Bob, one more time. With its face on the neck and bulbous belly. A household troubled by witchcraft would add the urine of the sick person into the bottle, and sometimes their hair, a fabric heart, nail clippings, and a piece of fabric cut out in the shape of a heart. Basically, by adding the urine of a sick person, maybe some clippings of hair, some fingernail clippings, belly button fuzz, whatever, put it in the bottle, that would be distracting the witch spirit away from the person they are intending to continue to curse or plague and go attack that bottle that's buried under the hearth or the door threshold, distracting them. The body parts and fluids carried with them the essence of the witch who had bewitched that person. It was a magical recipe to get the witch to end her curse. See, if the spirit got into the bottle, the witch's spirit found the bottle and went into it, there would also be, I think you could do the next one, Bob. One more. One more. Okay. Here's an X-ray of a bottle. They've X-rayed quite a number of bottles that they found in England, and you can see floating in a liquid suspension, which was tested and turned out to be urine, that there are nails and pins in there. So when the spirit of the witch would go into the bottle to attack that they thought was the sick person, they would get stuck on the pins and nails. They wouldn't be able to free themselves because those are made of iron and brass and things that the witch can't fight. And so the witch would either release their curse or die. Okay? One more. The first U.S. souvenir spoon ever made was the Salem spoon in 1891. It features a witch with just her broom, no cat, crescent moon, or bats. She seems agitated, aggressively pointing either to the name Salem or, Bob, further down the stem to 3 round-headed pins. 2 centuries had passed since the Salem witch trials, but those who designed the spoon still remembered that the pins were put in bottles to fight witches. Perhaps it was a little reminder, just in case Salem had another witch scare. Bob. This presentation has been necessarily brief and incomplete. It has probably stimulated more questions than answered. Hopefully, it has created some possible explanations for the mysterious marks and objects in some of the oldest remaining homes of original Lynn. These marks may have been created by multiple artists and over many years. We don't know whether the artists were male or female, separatists, Anglicans, Presbyterians, or crypto-Catholics, the homeowners themselves or their servants or slaves. We also don't truly know when the marks were made. They usually aren't dated. While questions of who and when are not easily answered, the question of why the marks were made and objects were hidden is better understood. The mark makers and object hiders were believers in the reality of God and the devil, and in the wrath of both. Overwhelmed by their fears of the supernatural world in which they were convinced they were immersed, they made those ritual protection marks and objects to protect their homes, families, and farm animals, and to cure those who had been bewitched. The wood and walls of their homes kept the wind and rain away, but the protective marks and objects kept away witches and other evils. At least they hoped. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my honor to give you your first few doses of promising cures. Perhaps it has made you feel a little better about living in the 21st century, and hopefully it has piqued your interest to read a little more of my book, which is free. Thank you very much. We have the lights here. If anyone has a question, I'll be happy to answer.
So hold on a minute. I think what we'll do is the raffle next.
Good.
Hello. Okay, so we're going to have our raffle drawing. We're going to give away one of Andy's books here, and I'm going to have Andy draw the winner.
Peter Coakley.
Peter Coakley.
You're welcome. Okay, Andy, I'll start with a question. I think someone had a question. When you find these objects, I feel like they've been there for 300, 400 years. Were you going in there and poking around and saying, there's something?
Yeah, I was. I've had so many amazing experiences. I could waste another hour of your time here. But I'll tell you, for example, when I went to the Ellis's house, it was the last home I was looking at that day. I was tired. My feet hurt. I'm not in perfect physical shape, in case you didn't notice. I was just exhausted. And he was very kind. He had me sit down at his dining room table, and I had a checklist of things. Have you ever found a horse's skull and a dead cat? And he's like, no, you know. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go through this so I can say, okay, so this is the first home that doesn't have anything. And then he said, and then I said, do you have marks that look like such and such, or this or that? He said, well, I've got some marks in the other room. You want to? What? Yeah. So we went into this. What would that be called? Was that the great room? What was it? Parlor. I mean, in the old days. I don't know if that was the hall or the great room. I don't know which one was larger. But well, anyway, the room we went into, I saw this fireplace, and it's got nice varnished walls and all that. And as I took a few more steps, I could see. Wait a minute. I see all these things, and it's like, is this just wishful thinking? Am I so tired I'm hallucinating? And I went, and I suddenly became a kid. I had my cell phone. I was on my knees taking pictures. I said, is this okay? Yeah. And I could barely even explain to him how excited I was about what I was finding. Just amazing that I found it. So they're there. He knew that they had marks, but he didn't know what they were. Yesterday, I'm giving a talk in a Zoom call for Little Compton Historical Society in Rhode Island next week. And last Sunday, they had a cider social. And I went there, and I've been there before, and they have one home that's just original 1600, just like the Boardman house. just left alone. And I went and I saw candle marks that I described, and they still had the carbon on them. And there were 12 of them. And I brought the director in of the society, and I said, Marjorie, have you seen this before? She said, no, what is it? I said, those are candle marks. Those are ritual protection marks. I said, I know that there's been restoration, like the fireplace itself was redone in 1954, right below it. And the lintel board is 1954. I said, but this beam, it goes across the whole house. I said, this is a main beam. She said, no, this one's original to 1690. And I haven't even told her yet, because the presentation's next week. But there's a fissure going through the taper marks. Now, what that means, it's called a seasoning check. It's where, when the wood dries, little cracks happen. And when you look at it, you can see the taper burns, the carbon, and where the crack is, there's no darkness inside. Now, what that means is the candle marks were put on first before the seasoning marks split apart. Otherwise, you'd have carbon inside. So that house was built in 1690. That beam is from 1690 to seasoning of a hardwood like oak, which is what that beam is, would have been in the first year, because the seasoning for a hardwood is done within a year. So those marks, those 12 marks, are definitely from 1690 to 1691. This is 2023. Those marks have been there for 333 years before the Salem witch trials, and they did them to protect themselves from some form of evil. It could have even been the carpenters or joiners that did it. They did it as a favor to the homeowners. With this new home, they could do the same thing. They did a lot of that kind of stuff. Point is, it was a ritual protection mark 333 years old ago, and she didn't even know the marks existed. And she is a fabulous, very smart lady. And so I can't wait for this Zoom call to be able to tell them. I've already got two slides showing them marks from England and all that kind of stuff. I just get goofy like a kid. You know, my dear wife is such a support to me for 46 years, and she lets me be a kid a lot, so it's good.
Does anybody else have some questions?
What triggered your interest?
Well, it was just in the process of researching this book. Again, what they were doing was protecting their family members from getting sick or sicker from a witch's curse. So it all falls under that rubric of health, the pursuit of health, etc. This is what they were doing in the 1600s and 1700s. Before there were many doctors, before there was very much scientific knowledge at all. I mean, Dr. Philip Reed just tossed Widow Burt under the bus and Margaret Gifford and said, there's no natural reason for these diseases. It's clearly witchcraft, and so the lady that's been taking care of them is a witch. And that took care of his competition, and it took care of his ignorance of the illness at the time. So it was just in the process of researching. And there is, again, something about the kid in me. I mean, I am not dressing up anymore for Halloween, but this stuff just really like, wow, they believe it. Wow, that's amazing. So I hope that conveyed as my enthusiasm conveyed this evening as you listened.
Okay, another question?
Where in Lynn is that burial ground that you mentioned?
It's at the I'll call it the northwest end of the Lynn Common.
Oh.
Okay.
Market Square.
Market Square, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And it's got amazing stones in there, but again, just like so many cemeteries, are really having a hard time.
It's not on the common itself.
No, I said it at the end. It's not on the common. It's if you go to the northwest end of the common, it's over to the southwest side of it.
Okay. More questions? I see someone over here.
Other than the order, which I've been to, the other places that you showed in the lecture, are they open to the public?
Well, the Appleton House at the Saugus Ironworks is. The Ellis home is private. The Henshaw home is private. The Hart home is private, and the Bill Thompson's house is private. So I really don't know what these people were thinking when they let me in. They didn't know me from Adam, and I'm trying to tell them that I think they've got witch marks in their house. So if they ever had a reason to turn a guy away at the door, they could have, but they didn't. Also the Humphrey House in Swampscott that I'm speaking on day after tomorrow. Again, seriously, I encourage you to go if you can. Amazing marks, amazing stories there. I've got a full presentation just based on that house that'll knock your socks off, and that one is open to the public. It's owned by the Historical Society. Hang on, Ken. Sir, you had one?
Some of the objects, the shoes,
yes.
Some of the things. So the owners that found these things, and,
yes.
And you were just asking.
Yeah,
I had things like this. Did they realize what they had, or had somebody else scooped it in?
No. I mean, for example, Bill Thompson with that shoe. He knew it was an old shoe, and that's all he knew. He didn't understand when you take an object that falls into the potential of being a ritual protection object, and you consider other factors like its location. This one being behind the fireplace, again, the superhighway for spirits to fly in. That's what makes it a more convincing argument to be a protective object. Can I prove it is? Absolutely not. Your wife can't prove why you put that vest on tonight. Was it because you were cold or because you like what it says? So we don't really know with absolute certainty, unless there was some documentation, some note, I put this here for this reason. And sometimes like the poppet dolls, they're found in the walls, and there's a note attached under the skirts and it says a little curse of who they're trying to curse by having this doll hidden in the wall, that kind of thing. Those things have happened. There's enough documentation to show that there certainly have been instances. But like President John Adams' house had hundreds of shoes. Does that mean that he and his family, his progeny, were the most frightened people in Massachusetts? I don't think so. There may have been many reasons they had shoes. Were some of them? I don't know. So.
Did they have it too in like houses where they worshiped, churches and buildings that weren't? Was it just in homes, or are they also in?
For New England, I'm not aware of churches, meeting houses, still standing that have been. First of all, I don't know how many meeting houses there are from the first period of European colonization still standing. But perhaps if I could broaden the answer, Great Britain has many churches that have loads of marks. And you wonder, well, were the parishioners doing it when the minister wasn't looking? Well, oftentimes, no. The minister engaged in it. His assistants engaged, and it was encouraged because it was a form of worship, etc. Now, in Massachusetts Bay Colony, Cotton Mather and Increase Mather is documented. They wrote things specifically saying, stop putting urine in the bottles, and because you're engaging in counter magic, and you're just playing into the devil's hands because he's the author of all magic. They knew it was happening. They wanted it to stop. There was what we call today a witch bottle with the urine and all, mentioned in the Salem witchcraft trials. Roger Toothaker, who ultimately was killed or executed, he told how he showed his daughter how to make a witch bottle, how to put the urine in and put it into a fire, to all this stuff. So, these things were definitely happening. Witch bottles have been found made of glass, a little bit more recent than the one I showed you. There's one in Providence, and two in Pennsylvania, several in Maryland, Virginia. They happened, they were being made. But the challenge again is when you're talking about a bottle or a shoe or a coin, those objects are hidden away in walls, in the dirt, buried in the ground or under a hearthstone. So, and even when people have found these things, they could have already been broken. They didn't recognize its significance. Some people will shake a jar and hear rattling inside. So what do? The first thing they do is they take the cork out and they open it out. Oh, it's just a bunch of rusty nails. Ooh, that smells foul. Okay, well, I'll save the bottle. That's kind of cool. I can sell that on eBay, and so that the history is lost.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? All right, thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Wonderful.